we've got more Hearthstone for you, and Saul got a little bit jealous of Lorinda stealing his favourite caster. So you've joined me on the desk. Did you enjoy the last series? It was a bit of a nail-biter at the end, wasn't it?
If I'm honest, Raven, I'm a bit put out.
Carry on.
Well, I fear you're getting complacent. You said during that series that what's the worst I can do to you? And I feel if that's your attitude, then I'm not doing my job properly. I'm just not roasting you hard enough.
Sometimes in a relationship, you need to spice things up a little bit.
Okay.
To keep it, keep the flame going. So that's what I've done.
Is this you bringing home a sex toy? Is that the equivalent? I don't...
Not at all what I said. I meant the caster relationship,
oh, I see.
of course.
Okay.
What does he think I was talking about? So
I think I made that pretty clear.
So we're going to get back to some serious things instead of Saul's weird yammering. Saul doesn't cast for a couple of matches and he just goes crazy at this point. It's going to be Hungary versus Russian Federation. We saw a lot from Russian Federation last week as they continue to just not be able to land a rag hit.
Yeah.
It looks like Indonesia got a little bit closer than they did in that matchup. But what can you tell me about Hungary?
I mean, it's a similar story to what we saw in the previous series with Indonesia. There's a couple of players here. Exego has some middling results, but again, it's the theme throughout the day. Really, when we looked at it, is one team is a very defined underdog in each of these series that we're going to see. And Hungary are filling that slot here, and Russia are the big powerhouse that really needs to be overcome. But as you said, they'll be looking for a little bit more good fortune than they had in the previous series.
Yeah, and just to note, we did, me and Lorinda just cast a 1-0 match that went obviously to, 2-1 2-0 for one of the teams. This is actually a 0-1 match. Both of these teams lost last week. Russia losing to Brazil 2-3, and then Hungary losing to Thailand 2-3 as well. So both of these teams will be, you could say, even hungrier to get a win. They always want the win. And but most importantly, it's going to just be really bad if they lose, right? Once you go to 2 losses in the first 2 rounds in this format, you're in some trouble. Yeah,
and as I was looking through getting prepared for this, the deck lists are actually a little bit interesting, so I'll be very surprised. I think the pick and ban phase can have a huge impact on the eventual outcome of this series.
Okay, well, let's just check out the pick and ban phase to see what's going on then. Let's not mess around. What's going on? Double Druid banned, and then a Rogue Mage pick for Hungary, and then a Warlock Shaman pick for Russian Federation.
I still want to play Double Druid. It just sounds like such a sick side-scroller. Let's just get it done. But yeah, so the big talking points that I brought up here is that for Russia, they are in fact bringing a Quest Rogue with them, and that, looking at the things, is the deck that they were isolated with at the end. Whereas Hungary, on their side, that seems to have been their plan, because they picked up their aggro rogue, odd rogue, they picked up their aggro mage, and they picked up their odd paladin as quickly as they were able to do so, and then just said, hey, you know what, Russia? Just have your Quest Rogue. We're going to take a 3 out of 5 matchup chance to just beat it up.
Yeah, do you find it strange that Russian Federation did not actually ban out some of these aggro decks? Because they overall got kind of a strong aggro lineup, as you just said, overall from Hungary. Was Russia not going to ban that? Are they just saying, well, if the rogue takes a loss, that's one deck, not all of them?
Yeah, first and foremost, it is only one deck that they're scared of protecting, right? There's a lot of other good anti-aggro decks in the format. Plus, the way the pick bans work out, you only get 1 ban initially, and there are much more high-priority decks to take down than an odd paladin or an aggro mage. Once that's done, the onus is kind of on the picking team to then set up their strategy, right? Because they then get 2 picks. So the Hungary then gobbled up the aggro decks to make sure they're in that position. And I think once they've already picked 2 aggro decks, there's not much point in them banning away odd paladin as the third one, right? So I imagine that's the thought process of what went down. And now quick scan of this says, oh boy, Russia's fortunes do seem to have turned around, because that Quest Rogue has now lined up into the Warrior from Hungary, dodged the Paladin, dodged the Mage, and dodged the Odd Rogue.
Yeah, it has, but as we did mention, that is just 1 deck and 1 win. You need 3 to take the series overall, and then there's the Paladin, the Rogue, and the Mage as the aggro decks, versus the Shaman, the Hunter, and the Priest. So what do you make of how the overall plan has worked out for Hungary? Have these aggro lists actually lined up well enough for them to take it over the line?
Let me take a look at Russia's Shuttlewalk Shaman real quick. It is the Keleseth version, so it's the greedier version. Obviously, Keleseth means no Pyromancer, first and foremost, which is where you want to be in your life when you're facing up against Odd Paladin. So the Odd Paladin could be picking up a win there. Odd Rogue versus the Hunter, I think we've kind of beaten into the ground that the weakness, if anything, of Death Rattle Hunter is just how slow they are to set up, and they can just get run over with Flappy Birds and Mooklas and Cold Bloods. So that one, probably, again, the aggro is come out on the right side of it. So yeah, maybe on further reflection, Hungary did actually, on balance, get the better of this second phase.
Yeah, it's not just
I say that as if they planned for it. They worked really hard.
Yeah. Well, they planned to set something up, and it happened to work out well for them. You can only do as much as you can do, right?
Of course.
So they clearly had a plan. They've gone full aggro as much as possible.
Right.
And we're going to see if that plan is going to pay off as we get into game number 1. Right. Do you know this? Z-Ride-X? Zridex? Yeah.
I would say Zridex, or I will be saying Zridex anyway.
On a Z to the ride to the X. That's what it's going for. No?
No.
Okay, Zridex it is. Discussion over.
If you're a Hungarian out there or a friend of Zridex's and you happen to know, do give us a little tweet.
Imagine.
And we'll correct it on the fly.
Z to the ride to the X.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
I am actually his mother, and I will tell you that on his birth certificate it says Z to the R to the IDE.
X.
Double hockey sticks.
Okay, never heard that before. Is that something you just made up?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Is it like a yo-yo term or something?
Is it a yo-yo term? No.
Oh, well, I'll never know with you. You told me you were walking the dog the other day, and I thought you'd bought a dog.
This never happened. This is an entirely fabricated conversation.
Jeez, I always run with your fabricated conversations.
You just don't know, do you?
Sometimes. Let's go. 2-1 on the board. The Arcus veteran just going to start to do something, although it's definitely not the opening that Zridex wants right now. I mean, yeah, pressing the hero power is not bad. The Purifier's Maul is the recovery step here, but everything else just looks a little bit slow. If this turn 5 whiffs, then they're kind of throwing air at the Shaman here.
Throwing air. Wow. Hungary, the team of airbenders.
It's a shame the film was so bad.
Yeah. You say that about a lot of things though, really, couldn't you?
What? It's a shame the film was bad?
Yeah. Just, I mean, movie adaptations have only really started to get good in the last 5 years or so. Before that, like every video game, every comic book, anything that got made into a movie was just terrible. That's true. I'm underestimating how old I am.
You underestimate how old we are.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
But you get my point. The MCU kind of changed the game. Before that, everything was pretty trash. Hearthstone, by the way.
The movie adaptation of Hearthstone went really well. It's called Warcraft.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't bad. Had some amazing CGI. And the orcs actually looked fantastic. But does this orc look fantastic? It
was a pretty fantastic spot for it to come down. The Acolyte of Pain, if I did choose to talk about Hearthstone for the last 45 seconds instead of movie adaptations, it was the point I was going to really address, was that Russia were deciding whether or not to coin that Acolyte of Pain, and their big fear was Raid Leader. Raid Leader was the big punish for the line that they took. To be out a coin and really very little cycle for their Acolyte, but then their justification for that, well, if that happens, you know, we have a good opportunity to just drop Mana Tide on the following turn anyway, so it hasn't worked out too badly for them in the end. But again, it's the difference between, you know, they can draw a Keleseth at some point in this game instead of a Pyromancer, which with a handful of Earth Shocks and Lightning Storms is a very, very big difference. Yeah,
and looking at the hand here, you can sort of tick some small boxes off the quest that is Shudderwock, you could argue. There's the 2 Life Drinkers, the Chain Gang, and Shudderwock himself. How important is that in this matchup as a whole? Are you ever actually getting to the point where you need to play Shudderwock to win? Is that a common occurrence?
Yes. No, I think you really can get there. I think Old Paladin is the most resilient aggro deck in the game. It's the one that you have to beat twice, perhaps what makes it the most popular one. Like, you have to beat it on board to stop it running you over, and then you have to beat its resources as it tries to grind back onto the board in the later stages. And some decks can bypass that just by making a big board of their own, at which point Old Paladin just collapses like a flan in a cupboard. They can't deal with it. But Shudderwock can't really do that. They don't make a board that you can't beat, so they kind of have to get to that Shudderwock point.
Things have to go really weird, right? Like Keleseth into, you know, a buff 3-drop, into Sirenite Chain Gang, into a Life Drinker, you know, weird things like that you end up being a little bit the beatdown. I will say, Russia playing MC Techs, because I think that's pretty important to try and flip the board if they can.
They are playing a single copy of Mind Control Tech, yes.
That's also one thing that they can do with Shudderwock. Even if it doesn't line up in the infinite Shudderwock world, they can actually just say, well, you know what, wait, is one Shudderwock just good enough to win this game? You know, steal a couple of minions, build a big board, and then just swing back for the lethal. It could come to it.
I can see it. Previous turn, by the way, Hungary decided to go face, ignoring a Mana Tide, which I do kind of like in the matchup. It's influenced by a lot of things right now. Firstly, just the texture of their hand, that classic Hearthstone casting phrase that everyone despises, just tells them to go face. They have Leroy, they have Fungal Mancer, all these tools to push damage, level up can end the game as well, and they're just, you know, slowly whittling away and setting up 2 to 3 turn lethal for themselves. But secondly, Manatide Totem being left on the board is actually like a detriment, because quite often when you make your big board push with Fungal Mancer or level up, like 12 to 13 total health is about what you end up with on the board. So then Manatide being there as well can then push that up to 16, which is outside of the range of Volcano.
Yeah, with the Divine Shield as well. And something the Russian Federation do have to think about is the impact of the Vine Cleaver in 2 turns potentially. And it is probably the one card you do think a fair few turns ahead, because it's the one card that will probably just get slammed on 7 if they have it. And then it's going to do 4, 8, 12. You know, it's going to stack damage very, very quickly. So it's something they have to consider. But I think the more pressing matter here is the I might be dead next turn issue.
Does seem somewhat pressing, yes.
And they can't really do everything they want, right? They can Lightning Storm and try and do what they can in terms of clearing the board, maybe even with a Hero Power and Earthshock. Probably with the Earthshock to take the Raid Leader down, this seems the safest option, but they are going to go with Hex instead.
Yeah, you can Hex Earthshock and that takes a massive chunk of power off the board,
Oh,
right?
sure, I actually, not going to lie, half didn't notice that the other Fungalmancer minion was just a dude.
Right.
Oh. That's the card I hate Shudderwock to play against. Glacial Shard.
All right, you want to get something off your chest, Raven?
Oh, he's just annoying. He won't go away.
Would you like to lie down on my sofa? I'll get my notebook out.
Not after the things you talk about a little bit earlier on. That sounds like some kind of trap to me.
Show you some pictures of some weird inky shapes. Tell me what you see.
You wouldn't want to hear the answers.
Glacial Shard. Glacial Shard. Yeah, that's a Glacial Shard.
It could be. I mean, it's kind of just a mess of shapes in itself, right, as a minion, so it's very likely, especially if the ink was blue.
What would Uther?
Leroy only 3 off this turn, meaning second Blessing of Might draw, I think, this turn would have been lethal. They even use 1? I know they mulliganed to 1 away, I think. But still, it's around the state of the game where from Hungary's position, you're putting your opponent on healing rain to stay alive, essentially, in the spot that you're in. Especially since you're playing a 2-5 here, so Lightning Storm is not likely to be a full clear. You can just beat away with the Corridor Creeper again on the next turn.
That's it, right? It looks like Hungary have kind of prepped for every scenario.
Yeah.
In the fact that they've gone wide enough, they've gone high enough in terms of the Corridor Creeper, and even the Divine Shield's a bit of a pain. And with only 6 mana available, any form of like big clear is just probably going to blow them out for a whole turn next turn, in which they can then, guess what? Set up level up again. They have 2 Divine Shield minions in hand that are going to be awkward to clear as well.
Right. Now with 2 healing rains, though, this is a lot of security for Russia. They have a potential Storm healing rain play this turn, and then potentially they can combine the second healing rain with the Saronite Chain Gang as well, because you do generally want to be looking to use your healing rains in turns where you do something else powerful alongside them, right? You never really want to have a healing rain pass kind of turn where you just essentially time walk for a turn, right?
And that's the problem with Storm this turn, right, as well. If you Storm, then you can't healing rain Saronite.
It locks you out of Saronite, yeah,
mana,
for the next turn at least, yeah.
So you do have to just be prepared. You know, there's not much they can do about it. This just has to happen, I think, in almost every instance. So you have to just say, okay, well, I'm probably not going to healing rain next turn and try and do something else.
Yeah, they still have...
you get pressured that hard.
Right, they still have like Saronite Glacial Shard, for example, which is a huge amount of pressure for Hungary to try and get through. It's a good turn as well, because it means turn 7, what you're scared of is Vine Cleaver, as you talked about earlier. Coming down from the Paladin, Saronite Glacial Shard is a great response to that.
Now, these are the tough moments when the aggro deck, or just, you know, the Paladin specifically, is right. It's gone back up to 21. I had him pretty much dead. What do I do, and how far enough do I go to try and make this happen? Because this gets very hard right now. I do think starting off with a Stonehill can really shape your plan, though.
Might be a turn for you to try and force Leroy through is the only alternative that I can see. just play Leroy, value trade one of the 1/1s. Your opponent's used a Lightning Storm. They haven't shown any real signs of having Volcano yet, but getting hand reads is harder when there's a Mana Tide totem on the board, because as we can see, the Mana Tide did draw that Volcano at the end of the previous.
And also as well, like, actually Overload makes hand reading quite hard, because you could be like, well, they wouldn't have played it anyway, or they couldn't play it, or now they could, but they didn't. You know, things start getting a bit more complicated when the player you're trying to read's turn is restricted in itself. That board got wide really quick, though. I blinked to miss that, but yeah, 7 minions on the board.
Yeah, that's what old Paladin does. They press the button and they play some things, and they have 7 minions in play pretty much any turn they want.
It's like, oh, that's what old Paladin does. Like, it's a new deck time. Good old Paladin.
Not only was that what Paladin does, it's also how Lorinda casts. You know, they just press the thing and play some things, and then they've got some things in play, and then they hit you with the things, and they floop you a bunch, and then you've got a handful of gubbins that just doesn't do anything.
And then you've got to queue your next thing up to try and win the thing.
Yep. So they need a strategy of how they use all these things in their hand in a way that they don't die, because that's the goal of the game.
Maybe I am casting with Lorinda again. Not even here to defend himself.
I mean, if he's going to swan off and leave us in the middle of the day, then I'm going to relentlessly mock him while he's not here. You talked about this exact dynamic in the last series.
Lorinda's like, oh, I don't want to be too mean. I'm like, Lorinda, you are a puppy dog compared to what I'm used to.
14 health on the board, by the way, plus the 2 Divine Shields makes 16. So this Mana Tide being an issue is as I was mentioning earlier, that extra 3 health on Russia's side of the board. But it's hard to say that it's been a negative for them so far with how many cards it's picked up at this point.
So now I feel like you just take the level up, not only because there's literally nothing else they can do this turn unless the trades happen, but a 3 minion level up. I think that's probably as good as you're ever gonna get reliably in this matchup.
It also, how much do you push then? You push 3, 4, 5, 6. Your opponent goes down to 12. So if you get 6 power living on the board, you then have Leroy coming through on the following turn. It looks promising.
Divine Shield minions are still quite annoying.
Yep.
And again, what you've got to do here as well is you could think, oh, well, they've got Volcano, whatever. Right, but they're overloaded the next turn. So, yes, they cleared turn 1, but we've seen what Paladin can do. You set up again, and this time they might not have the second Volcano, or you've already seen one Lightning Storm, you've already seen one Healing Rain. They can't have unlimited options, especially with limited mana.
19, if I've counted it right this time, times of health on board, and the Glacial Shard trade can only take 3 off the board, so it's 16 again. Meaning that the most likely scenario is a 1/1 Stonehill defender living at the end of the turn, but Silvername still has plenty of clear options. He can Earthshock something to get a full clear. He can just Volcano Healing Rain and be totally fine with just leaving one thing in play.
Yeah, I was going to say Earthshock really does help. Because it removes 2 health from the board, and the trade as well removes another 3. Yeah, I guess, do you even really need to Earthshock right now? Volcano.
I like Volcano Healing Rain a lot better.
Get it done. Next turn, you can maybe play double Life Drinker. Oh, sorry, single Life Drinker and a Farsight. So have the Earthshock spare.
Yeah, Life Drinker Acolyte, Life Drinker Glacial Shard Totem next turn. These are all possibilities.
Cheeky Stonehill.
I think this is the best point in the game to Healing Rain. It looked like, just based on mouse movements, that Russia had a very quick discussion about Farsight and Acolyte, but this is the least pressure you'll be able to Healing Rain under for the rest of the game, most likely. There is that Blessing of Might that would have been lethal. There was a lethal draw for this Blessing of Might on turn 6, I believe it was.
Yeah, to be fair to Hungary, even this Iron Fur Grizzly plus Lost in Jungle hero power means that you can still just look, the board's back. Imagine if you had Healing Rain next turn. You're in massive trouble. Dumping the whole hand. This, of course, makes Divine Favor as a draw. Not too bad either.
Right.
Can draw a lot of cards. Divine Favor comes down.
How's that card this turn, Raven?
It's all right. It's all right, especially with the Glacial Shard and the Earthshock as a... Even if Russia care enough to deal with that bear 100% of the time.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind the Glacial Shard this turn locking out face. You kind of have to think about which top decks beat you at this point, and Vine Cleaver is one of those cards. So preemptively freezing the face here could put you in a position, but with both Life Drinkers in hand, I guess they're just going to use the mana efficiency. More likely just to play it out there, especially since they got the full high roll as well. Since they killed the Grizzly, It's less likely that they need to mess around, but there is the Vine Cleaver.
Okay.
So that's 2 1/1s and 4 damage on the board that could have not been here.
That is true, but I thought of it more backwards than that, and because you're Lightning Storming, you were never going to Shudder Walk anyway, which means that you can just Glacial Shard and do a setup for Shudder Walk the turn after.
Right, exactly. It's a good way of putting it.
Ooh, nice, nice. Wow, they can do all three. Life Drinker, Mind Control Tech, and Glacial Shard, and you might think, oh, it's just a 1/1. But one, you know how powerful these are in Paladin, but most importantly, it's live for the Shudder Walk turn.
Right.
And Hungary are not pressing the button next turn, they just are, so it means you're going to get some more steals going forward as well.
Yeah, and it's worth saying the way Russia played it out as well left more mana open on this turn. If they'd have gone Glacial Shard on the first turn, this would have almost had to have been their double Life Drinker turn. Although that's not true. They could probably play out this game with 1 Life Drinker. But let's assume you want to play both. This would just be double Life Drinker go.
And it's a very flat turn.
They'd have no mana for anything else. You know, this way, over the course of the game, whether you use Glacial Shard 2 turns ago or 1 turn ago, you still prevent 2 1/1s and 4 damage over the course of 2 turns. So maybe the more mana-efficient play was correct from Russia.
Yeah, I liked it. Now there is that option.
You just said you didn't. You were saying because you overload and you weren't Shudder Walking, then you could have your Glacial Shard turn.
Wait, which is what they did. They just played Glacial Shard on the second turn. That's what I said.
Okay.
I'm so confused.
All right.
Hagatha as an option, though. I guess they just don't read it. Let's go.
Yeah, Shudder Walk just seems game-winning here. No real need to mess around with the Hagatha. They're going to Shard, they're going to MC Tech, they're going to hit the Vest Minion, because why wouldn't they? They're going to Shard some more, and then they've still got Hagatha as a board clear afterwards if they want it. That's just, yeah.
And there's just no answer to 6/6s, and this is what I was saying. In terms of the overall setup, and it did work for the Russian Federation. Silvername had a bit of a better performance with that deck than he did last week in terms of that Ragnarok shot's not quite hitting what he wanted to do.
Most importantly, do you see that majestic boy just poking out from behind his chair?
The giraffe on the back?
Was it a giraffe? It looked like a little furry leopard or something just sat on his sofa.
Oh, on his sofa. I was looking at the picture next to the patron, which was a giraffe, I believe.
All right.
Just thinking about a giraffe.
1-0 to Russia, and that sets up the maximum possibility from my perspective of a 3-0 sweep this series, because the third game is difficult. The third game is the Aggro Rogue versus the Hunter. Standard actually piloting the Hunter for Russia, but this next game, if there are many good matchups left for Quest Rogue in the metagame, this has to be one of them.
Yeah, it's very similar now to any deck that can go slow but is like fairly inevitable.
Yeah.
Has such a powerful, push versus Warrior. We saw it even then. The Warrior had a chance with the Pixie hit in the previous series to get the job done, but that was still very difficult to set up, and the Warrior went very quick. The Shaman went kind of a little bit slow, but it's the same with the Hunter. I view this now like this Quest Rogue is similar to the Death Rattle Hunter against Warrior. I just don't quite know how they win when everything you do is just it's slow enough, but then big enough towards the mid to late game.
Yeah, it's not one of... So, obviously, I had quite an extended argument with various people on Twitter when the Quest Rogue nerf happened.
Right.
Where a lot of people were saying, oh, it doesn't matter. You still win the matchups you win. I was like, well, of course it matters. Like, that's a reductive statement. You can't nerf every minion by 1/1.
You've got to be careful with Sal. If you say something that is literally not 100% true, he will tell you.
Right, but it does make a difference. You can't value trade a Primordial Drake anymore. You can't dagger and 5/5 through a 3/6 Ironwood Golem, which were huge in the metagame at the time. Like, it had an impact. But yes, in certain matchups like Quest Warrior, it really isn't a big deal. The taunts are Stonehill Defenders and Phantom Militias. They're 2/4s, they're 1/4s. Your 4/4s are going to deal with those anyway. So the inevitability still works out on your side.
Yeah, even the Raptors are 2/6s, which you couldn't do. Anyway, you kind of needed the hit and the trade. It's a bit easy with the dagger.
5/5 plus the dagger still does it, yeah.
But the daggers also could be a little bit tricky to set up sometimes in terms of usage. But yeah.
We have seen a little bit of a Quest Rogue resurgence recently, though, with Tare taking down HCT Oakland with Quest Rogue in his lineup, and then one player whose name escapes me, I apologize, hit Rank 1 Legend with it, and then Killin all day, suddenly the Quest Rogue signal went off in Killin's bedroom, which he just has wired into the cloud. Whenever Quest Rogue's good, it just goes off and alerts him, and then he picked up Quest Rogue and he hit Rank 1 Legend with it as well. Do you feel this is a real resurgence for Quest Rogue?
I don't know, because even if it is, it's all going to get changed anyway. I feel like Quest Rogue was always a heavily meta-dependent deck, because you could just kill it back when aggro existed. You could actually just kill it a lot of the time pretty quick. But again, it's kind of hard with Scale Hide. It did just get way more secure as well because of those lifesteal options. But in general, I feel like Quest Rogue works for a limited amount of time, especially post-original nerf, and it'll just go away again. Like, I think some of these expansion tools look too aggressive for you to be messing around with Quest Rogue. Although there's a card that shuffles more of the same card into your deck, so...
Too aggressive? You think what we've seen from the expansion?
There's a 1/5 you can stick pants on, as you like to call it.
I do just want to put pants on a 1/5.
Right, well, there you go.
There's also Scorpomatic, as you pointed out, and shattered my dreams that if the 1/5 starts to run away with the meta, everyone's just going to play Scorpomatic.
It was a weird moment where I saw that 1/5, we sort of freaked out about it, and I was like, wait, there is a card somewhere in my brain that deals with this. But that's enough of us talking about what could be. Let's talk about what is happening right now. Quest Rogue versus the Warrior. Probably keep the quest in this matchup.
Seems wise.
But which one? Trick question, both.
Both? Yeah. Not sure where you want us to go with this.
Nowhere.
Fair enough. So 2 bouncers opening hand for Russia is fantastic. But one thing you do actually have to look out for in this matchup, I sold it as a free win for Rogue, which it's not. Let me rewind. Let me wind my neck in just a little bit. You do actually still want to bounce with value. And by that I mean, bounce a minion that's doing something. If you just bounce a Glacial Shard over and over and over and over, by the time you finish your quest, you might have 2-3 cards in hand. And that's something that Warrior can try and outvalue. Whereas if you go off with a more value-based minion, then that's a lot more difficult to engineer from Warrior's side. They can't outlast you, they can't stop you from killing them. That's like the 1-2 punch that you want to have.
Yeah, and there's a small thing as well in terms of this 4/4 nerf we touched on earlier, is the Sulfuras does kill a 4/4, so
Fair.
It can help with the hero power, like the Brawl Sulfuras hero power face.
Yeah.
Plan does work against Quest Rogue, actually.
There you go, Firefly is a great start.
That'll do.
Yeah, that is a value engine, self-replacing every time you bounce it, and so you're in business. With Mimic Pod now as well, they're really already pretty close to potential quest completion.
Flashbacks.
No, Shudder was the last game.
Is this one?
You say that. That was actually pretty good, though. Come on.
It was a shiver.
The guys at home didn't get it because they didn't see you shudder, but it was purely for your amusement. So I hope you appreciate it.
I'm amused. This I'm going to step it up and be more mean to me is working very, very well. So you're just literally amusing me on cast now.
Yeah.
How long can this go on?
Not that long, Sirenet Chain Gang. Not that long. Don't you worry.
Mimic Pod hit Vanish, which is about as bad as it gets in the matchup. Honestly, they really just wanted that to double up on any minion. If it ended up being another value-based minion, then perfect. They'd have had 2 copies there and then 2 with the Shadow Steps already. But now they're facing down some difficult decisions because the minion they've doubled up on naturally is Glacial Shard. But again, that's not one of the ideal minions that you really want to be using to bounce in this matchup.
It's not. But my question with this hand is there a way they can use Glacial Shard, and because of Vanish, they can have enough value from that in a very roundabout way?
Sure. Double Vanish in hand is, if you're going to use it, you're using it for burst damage more often than not, than trying to complete your quest. But it might come down to that point. But yeah, with Double Vanish in hand alongside Prep, you have the freedom, I guess, to use almost any minion you want.
Just because Firefly's already there, and you could even maybe end up Shadow Stepping a Firefly to then get more 4/4s on the board. Depending on how it plays out, of course.
Right. Actually, I think that's probably a good line. If you just turbo out quest as fast as you can, using potentially the Prep Vanish, and then try and use your Firefly to refill afterwards. I guess that makes some sense.
That's where I was going with it, at least. Is everything queued up, ready to go? They'd used both Shadow Steps just to get the Glacial Shard on 0 mana, but this means they can now do, as you mentioned, the Prep Vanish play next turn.
Out of my jungle!
I've only just registered that we have two quest decks facing off against each other. So it's like the first week of the meta. Yeah, exactly.
So do you take Et in here? Tanks 3 4/4s and kills them?
And summons a 4/4 for your opponent?
Right, but it's already tanking 3. So the one it summons, K, still tanks 2 more and kills all 3. I don't know, seems okay. You're not playing any of them this turn, so you cross that one off.
It's not Lord of the Arena, so we can rule that out immediately. Rotten Applebaum, like we said, deals with a 4/4 and a dagger, but is a mana cheaper, which can be important. If you get to the hyper late game, like Brawl into Rotten Applebaum is a turn you can play, whereas you can't do it with a 6 mana card. Doesn't have any real effect on Warpath, but I think my instinct lent towards the Rotten Applebaum.
Okay.
And this is what we set up from Russia. Shards go face because the minions are getting vanished. That's the dead giveaway to what the final plan is here if you haven't figured it out yet.
And also, these 1/1s are actually pretty good because they do the job we wanted the Firefly to do as well in terms of just get you more stuff.
Now then, here's a very, very boring conversation that no one's going to care about. So they used the vanish on the far right, the one that they drew this turn. Yes? Now, on the surface, you would say that's correct, because if they use one of the vanishes that are from Mimic Pod, they reveal the other card to their opponent, because they're both the same, and with 4 players on the opposing team,
you'd hope they're counting.
Someone is tracking that. However, last turn, you shadow stepped 2 minions to the point where they cost 0 mana. Does that not hard telegraph that you have Vanish in your hand already? So therefore, by casting the new Vanish that you didn't have last turn, you've actually given away more information because they can already hand read that you have a Vanish.
Maybe they just really want them to know they have 2 Vanishes. Maybe they're just like, look, you play minions, it's not going to stick.
I told you it was a really boring conversation, but...
I do think there's something that exists of going too deep.
Fair.
And I think that that's not like a 100% read. And if it's not 100% read, are you just okay with it?
Okay.
Because like, would you honestly just say 100% Vanish those 2 cards? The main pod. Would you go that hard in a match?
I mean, it's like you said, it's hard to say 100% anything.
Yes.
But if I was on Hungary's team, I think I would be saying they have Vanish in hand. You know, I wouldn't be saying they absolutely 100% every time, but it would be my read. I would stand by it.
Having Vanish though?
Of course, but like, why reveal that they're not 2 other cards? It's not that they are Vanish; it's that they're not 2 other cards that they then have to think about and play around.
One way out of that boring conversation.
Yeah, like I said, these are the kind of things that I think about on very lonely nights at home, Raven.
I'm glad.
Nothing?
I'm
okay,
glad.
good.
That's all I'm saying. Not after your filthy mouth earlier, starting off the cast. Okay, well, that is the quest done. The Glacial Shards, although not the best targets in the world, with a couple of Raptors and a Dream, you know, there is still enough juice in the tank for Team Russia to get some work done right now. And there's the dagger swing that is a little bit tricky to manage sometimes in terms of when you press that dagger and get it set up to get some value. But now the question really is on what do Hungary do right now? Lose? Like,
Not necessarily,
it sounds
because
mean, but like, what can they do at this point?
Well, as I said, they're in a position now where Russia have a very low-value hand. You know, 2 of their cards are Vanishes, 2 of their cards are 0 value, apart from the individual 4/4s, and if they don't start drawing value tools, then the hand can go dry. And Hungary themselves are 6 out of 7 on Quest. So if Renman and Russia cannot start filling the board every turn with a big board of 4/4s, Sulfuras is going to be able to push 4 damage to face quite regularly. Sorry, push 8 damage to face. Take out a minion as a 4/4, as you mentioned, is a big change, and just push damage later on.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying Novice Engineer is a really, really, really good draw.
What did you think about the no attack last turn? Is it just deemed pointless because of Brawl?
I expect so, yeah. Because again, because the minions are 4/4s, why hit a minion this turn, right? You're going to Brawl next turn. You're going to hit a minion. You're going to hit a minion on the following turn. You're going to get a hero power to face. The turn after, you would like to do that same thing and then push 8 damage to face again with the hero power. You can't do that if you've already used 1 weapon charge on this turn.
Yeah. Good by weapon swings though, as Glacial Shards can just lock out Sulfuras for the rest of the game, more or less. I think it's a fair assumption right now.
And that's the argument as to why you should swing the weapon, because you could have killed a Glacial Shard that turn, you could have killed a Firefly that turn, and it actually cycles all the way back around to the really boring conversation, whereas what is your read on Vanishes in their hand? Because if you had one, reducing those minions on the board just so they can't be vanished is actually relevant.
Yes, it seems like they in fact just did not make that read, right? Like,
and playing the far right Vanish was just absolutely correct by Russia in the results-oriented world.
They made the read and then realized that
all right, I tap out.
I
tap out. We're not talking about it anymore.
1-0 to Raven.
It was about 29,000 to 1 against
Million.
Raven. Okay.
Okay, there you go. I'll let you have your 29,000. Again, though, this is now quite problematic as no weapon swing is just an issue. The plan doesn't work anymore, and great. 2-mana killer 4/4 sounds fantastic, but not when you're getting hit by more 4/4s at the same time. It's a double novice engineer. May as well just draw the whole deck at this point. Yep.
There we go. There's some charge damage. Alongside that Vanish, and I believe one more Broom. No, they threw the Brewmaster away. I was remembering it from their opening hand, but they actually tossed it and picked up the second Shadow Step instead. So they still have both Brewmasters in deck as well, I believe. Oh yeah. That's the juice.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is just probably going to draw charges. There's still deck hands as well.
That's a charger.
Kind of a charge menu.
That's charges.
Yep. And
yeah, you see the reaction. I mean, the player cam from Redmond there basically had the same reaction in visual form as we did in audio form.
Poggers.
Yeah.
So honestly, after seeing so many cards, if you were the warrior, you tapping out right now. Describe to me a path of victory.
Let me check Hungary's deck list real quick. I am looking for Blackwalled Pixie, which is not there. No, it is there. I did see it. It's higher in the list than I expect it to be. It's not a card that I'm used to looking for. So, okay, with a Blackwalled Pixie setup, you can potentially win the game in maybe a 1 Scale Hide world. You probably can't beat double Scale Hide. But I guess you're fine, actually, because you don't actually have to have minions in play yourself. So yeah, Blackwalled Pixie is probably the out that they're looking for at this point, and they just have to push damage and race.
A cheeky swing now as well can help them. And I mean, you can hero power anyway and see where it goes. They're working out what they want guaranteed. Okay. Wait. Why are they not swinging Sol? I don't know anymore. They know there's a Glacial Shard there.
A very good question at this point. Exactly, they know there's a Glacial Shard in hand. Precisely.
Blowing my mind.
Ooh, there's the deckhand, there's the Stone Tusk Boar. They can be played with Vanish on following turns now as well. Use the deckhand because it's the situational charger. Hit it to face, that's 16. They have 16 more on the following turn with Stone Tusk, Vanish, Stone Tusk.
Most importantly as well, Sap. Just to, you know, they can even get the first set of damage through. If all of these minions disappear and they have to play more for the first hit, they can just sap them away and pile on more pressure regardless. So if not next turn, the turn after seems pretty wrapped up for Russia here, and it's on Hungary to just work out if there's any way. But I genuinely don't know why the weapon isn't swinging. I have no clue. I feel like they've just missed 8 damage so far.
It feels like they are about to die with a weapon charge still up this game, which, again, seems to illustrate that something has gone very wrong.
Yeah. Right. So they would have been on 18 if they swung twice, or they could have took 4 more damage and guaranteed AO power to face, but that is risky. Not that any of it matters. Maybe you can go back and deconstruct it later on, but to me, this looks like enough damage. So the Quest Rogue gets the win.
It does. This was the setup from the last turn, and it's just Stone Tusk, Vanish, Stone Tusk. Stone Tusk is 16. Multiplying in 4s, marginally harder than multiplying in 5s used to be, but still not too tricky to know that 4 into 16 gets the job done. Russia now do go out to that 2-0 lead that I predicted after the opener, but now the series does start to take just a little turn for the worse for them as they have their Death Rattle Hunter going up against the Odd Rogue from Hungary.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more tricky, although I do want to just fish this.
Go ahead. Very surreptitiously done. I'm sure no one noticed that there is just a piece of paper on our desk. Shock horror.
There is Death Rattle, but it is actually Recruit, so there are some differences. But We'll get into those in a little bit. We're going to look at the list, but we are going to go to a short break, and we'll get right back to you with maybe the last game of this series. It's Hungary versus Russia Federation, and Russia are going 2-0 up so far with some fairly solid play, I must say. We picked a few holes in some of Hungary's decisions over the last couple of games, but I can't say we really put too many on Russia because, I'll be honest, I didn't really spot any.
So the Glacial Shard Vanish plan was a risk, I will put it that way, but it's a calculated risk because you saw, after I said like that they drew the Novice Engineer, I was like, oh, that's like the best draw in the deck. Well, actually, also the next 6 cards they drew were also the best card in the deck. So you can see from that point, you know, Lorinda was talking earlier about how Druids have to trust their deck. I think Rogue is the quintessential trust your deck archetype. They fly by the seat of their pants constantly, just trusting that their next draw is going to be something.
And they have done since Rogue was built, right? It was a class. And that is transferred to the Rogue players that trust their class as well to quite extreme levels. But let's get into this game. Sol absolutely lied to you. This is Recruit Hunter, not Death Rattle Hunter. And this is important. The matchup looks better because of some of those cards you see. They played 2 Tar Creepers, 2 Chain Gangs. The Grizzlies are more common, but also there's still the Houndmaster Shore, there's still the Rexar. Seeping Oozling is a card that requires much less setup to get value from than you would say of Cube and Eggs and things like that. So it's more of just a lot of cards they can just drop on the board and say, deal with this, deal with this, deal with this, without anywhere near as much setup as Cube Hunter has right now.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good breakdown. And my mistake, I did call it out as Death Rattle Hunter. It's twice that I've done that now. And with the far right decks of the players' lineups both sides, like clearly I just stop caring when I get to the 9th deck and just write down the first thing that comes to mind.
What a noob.
I know, but yeah, Recruit Hunter much more secure against aggro, especially in the way that Russia have built it. So the chances of a 3-0, especially because they're actually so far ahead on this board, because they can just go coin 3 into 3 here after the Firefly, which they may or may not play as to whether they want to eat up a Dagger Charge. Personally, I would like to eat a Dagger Charge here just because it makes Hench Clans more awkward, it makes Deadly Poison more awkward, like all kinds of things later on in the game. And then from that point, they can just like coin Tar Creeper into Stitch Tracker, and they're actually just ahead on board in the early game.
Right, and then because of the way this draw works, they either draw the other low taunts they have, or the good half of their deck at the right half of the game, right? Like, they actually are just drawing the cards in the right order, and that sounds like a very, very dumb thing to say, but it has huge impacts where the opening turns are quintessential and how well this goes for the Rogue.
This is interesting. So this is your first big fear turn, right? You're playing against an aggro deck. They've missed their 1-drop. They've just hero powered on 2, as odd decks are known to do. Now this is where odd decks get scary, right? It's where Hench Clan Thug comes down. It's where King Mukla sometimes comes down. If it's in the list, it's where Hench Clan Thug comes down. So you need to try and set up for that. You have a couple of ways to doing it. First is the Tar Creeper, and then on the following turn, if one of those big threats comes down that you have to remove, you can go Hunter's Mark, Candleshot, Firefly, with the Firefly now protected behind a Tar Creeper, which is a better position for it to be in. If it doesn't come down, if this is just a terrible hand from Hungary, then you can just go ahead and Stitch Tracker.
Yep. And I really like this. This Tar Creeper first is huge because it's also the minion that will draw out a Hench Clan regardless, right? Because you can't play, say, a Flappy Bird into a Tar Creeper, right? It just doesn't work. Hench Clan beats it, though, with this turn, but then you just do the return backhand and say, you know what? Nope, get down, Hench Clan Thug. And also Rexar now. Schneider actually really good at Hearthstone.
He is. You're memeing, but he also is. And now it's worth looking at the game state. We talked about the decision of Firefly on turn 1 or not, and the difference is thus. There is a Firefly on the board that will stay on the board because it's protected behind a Tar Creeper, versus a Dagger Charge that may or may not exist at this point. This Dagger could have been exhausted if the Firefly came down on turn 1, which means now potentially the Deadly Poison and the Hench Clan Thug that are in hand are a little bit more awkward to use. So you can see even the very basic Hearthstone decision of do I play my 1-drop on 1 has pretty far-reaching implications when you fast-forward time a couple of turns into the future.
It really does as well, because this could be foreseen. This was not a series of fortunate or unfortunate events.
Right.
This was the opening hand play. Like, nothing new has come out into the hand that's dealt with this too much. And this Tar Creeper was unlikely to get cleared up, which meant the floating 1 dagger duration was unlikely to make a huge impact. even though this played up the Tar Creep and it is a little bit of a harder turn, was a harder turn, maybe, the fact that the dagger and the poison was used just the once there to get one value out of it does change this, because sometimes the rogue does go aggressive and generate a race scenario, which as this kind of hunter, you can't quite do this early in the game.
Right, and if we want to follow this path through, we can keep an eye on this throughout the game. Would you rather have this 1-2 on the board right now, or would you rather that Hungary had not had a dagger last turn? Their entire turn hinged on the back of having a single dagger charge remaining. Otherwise, this Hench Clan Thug would have been coming down as just a 3-3 on the board. How much different is that? You still wouldn't be able to deal with it from hand. There's so many questions, and you can't really definitively call that decision right or wrong, because there's just so many variables involved. It's the very difficult part of Hearthstone. It is a technically solvable game, even with all the random effects that can happen, but it's just so far beyond human comprehension,
right?
Yeah, of being able to solve it.
Yeah. The butterfly effect is a problem when you want to get sure outcomes of things. Now, the silence comes down onto the Hench Clan here, and it does directly, sort of contest it. There could just be Cobalt trade onto the 1-2, but the attack on the Spellbreaker is high enough, combined with the Candle Shot in hand, means that that's 5 power that you can aim anywhere you want. So making a play like Scalebane and not trading to the 4-3 feels really bad for the rogue. And then also if you do any other play with what's available in hand, that also feels bad for the rogue. So Steyr and Team Russia have put themselves in a very good spot. They also have the build up to Saranac Chain Gang. Trades happen in most worlds, and then you can Deathstalker Rexar a lot of the minions away as well. It was a slow turn of the head and a shot.
Crushing walls.
One of the best animations currently in the game.
Did you see a recent screenshot on the Twitters, Raven?
I did.
Where 2 Witchwood Grizzlies were destroyed by a crushing walls that came from a Blink Fox in almost this very matchup. I believe that would have been Death Rattle Hunter, Egg Hunter that it was against, but the Grizzlies are in this deck as well.
Yeah, and like we said, there's the 2 Tar Creepers, the Chain Gangs. Even although it's not as flashy, just removing them from play if you already have a board and hitting face is game-winning, potentially.
How long can this
What also could be game-winning.
I love the Chain Gangs.
This 1-2 punch that you described, Chain Gang into Rexar, could get a very nice grip on this board, especially because the extra Candle Shot charge is hanging around to make breakpoints happen as well.
Candle Shot, I think on the surface, when it first was revealed, it's like, it's okay. It's actually really good.
I said that card was nice.
Oh, really? Okay. Because I think what's undervalued is the immunity a lot of the time. Like, one damage is fantastic. Mage Hero Power is pretty good, I've heard. But the immunity is like, oh, no, you should tank 7 here. And they just don't. Like, look at Giants, right? Hunter's marking a Giant, easiest example in the world. The difference between taking 8 and clearing a Giant and taking 0 is absurd. Like, game-winning, game-changing there for just a cheeky little 1-drop weapon.
Yeah, it's exactly really what I think I said when I saw the card at first. It's like, people say, oh, well, Light's Justice doesn't see play. Why would Candle Shot see play? Well, first and foremost, Paladin have a lot better ways to control the board without it, and they also power a quality Consecrate deck if they want to be, which means they can let the board spiral and then just a quality Consecrate, whereas Hunter can't really control early game boards. And the difference between a weapon that's only effective on turn 1 and a weapon that's still effective later on is that immunity. You can just smack big 5/5s and 8/8s with a Candle Shot later in the game and be happy about it.
Yeah, and look at this setup as well. Okay, 3 damage, Rexar, bye-bye board. And yes, you don't have a board yourself, which is a little bit frustrating. You'll end up with just a 1-2, but it is a strong play just to clear off the rogue board. The other option is just Seeping Oozling, because guess what? Rogue can also not do much about this either.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you might have just tunneled a little bit because that Oozling came anyway, but you were ramping up to it. I know, I'm fine. I'll give you credit for it. It's okay.
I'll take it. Take it. But yeah, this is the issue, right? So somehow, Russia are ahead on health, on board. The hand size is completely reasonable right now.
Sorry, they played around crushing walls accidentally.
Dude, that's exactly what they're laughing about that now. Like.
I mean, maybe it's on purpose. Who knows? That screenshot I'm talking about got a lot of retweets.
They know their opponents have a Hunter card.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone who's played Hearthstone will agree, when your opponent gets a random effect card of yours, or of the class, it's normally the best card they can possibly get.
Yeah, that's how that works.
I think so.
So many options.
I did get Katharina Death Rattle.
Acceptable.
Yeah, which will summon one of the many beasts, actually. Just to remind you, might be too used to now seeing the Cube Hunter, but there's 2 charged Devil Swords, which do actually have charge when they're pulled, especially like that. And then there's King Crush as a one-of course, but then also importantly 2 Witchwood Grizzlies. So there's no real whiff in my book, to be honest, Startle with the Steeping Oozling. There's like, you either kill the rogue or become immune to everything.
Right.
It's a good play, though.
Yeah, it's a nice cleanup. I do want to mention, by the way, I really like that they left Charged Devilsaur as the Charged Devilsaur effect and didn't change it to Rush when it's markedly very similar. I quite often criticize Blizzard for how cruel they are to combo decks, but you know that is a clear nod that they are okay with that being in there as a potential combo win condition. So I love that they did that.
Yeah, I like it too. Just anything that, especially it was well themed, right? You just like make tons of big dinosaurs and throw them at your opponent. Like, that's kind of cool. With King Crush. I mean, I guess people played Cube Druid, didn't they?
Yep.
For a little bit. I think Viper did that once in a tournament.
Cube Druid was brought to a top 16 of a tour stop at Sydney.
Yeah. Crazy people.
Yeah.
Crazy people. I'll play gets a little bit more tricky. You can't just Deathstalker Rexar clear this up. There's a Devilsaur we were talking about. But guess what? Targ Reaper.
Quickly.
Targ Reaper over Houndmaster Shore there. Houndmaster Shore looked pretty powerful this turn.
Wait, this turn? To just do the 3? It just dies to the Valspine though, right?
Yeah, but you have a Candle Shot equipped still, and the 6/4 goes into your 3/6.
That is true.
Oh.
Didn't play around.
Didn't play around crushing walls this time. Sloppy mechanics, Russia.
I expected better, so.
I did too. Trying to tell me, in Stanadachi's 370,000 games of Hearthstone, he hasn't encountered crushing walls from Blink Fox before? Come on.
Maybe not. Maybe he just doesn't play Hunter unless in the tournament. It's not one of his go-to decks, is it?
I remember he brought it to playoffs. He was one of the few people playing Spell Hunter, like aggro Spell Hunter in playoffs.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that, actually. Definitely not a staple. I'd give Stanadachi Rogue as a staple.
Okay.
I think I'd give a lot of good players Rogue right now for some reason.
Wait for the reaction. Understated.
It's a huge deal. Really big deal. They've just caught up actually in this game, and they shouldn't have really been allowed to.
It's still a fine Rexar turn though.
It is. It is.
And I do like the way that they've played this. They didn't really panic with their Rexar. They recognized that, you know, that Oozling turn was fantastic, and Rexar was going to be great for the next 3 or 4 turns, right? With Candle Shot equipped, with a couple of minions in play, they were always going to be able to set this up.
And most importantly now, they get the hero power off as well. It's very important to get the hero power off as early as possible in setups like this when you play Rexar late, so that you can go wild.
Ooh, did they bloat bat? Did they bloat bat?
I hope so. I would have bloat batted.
That is a Stone Tusk Boar. I like bloat bat anyway, because you could potentially just hide it behind a Witchwood Grizzly over the course of a couple of turns. That Witchwood Grizzly's coming down with a lot of health.
See now, there are also 2 plate deads, so there's a consideration for lifesteal too.
Ayy.
D? Fledgling. And Hungary kind of have to do this, right? They can't, like, you know, do the dagger up, get super aggressive. They have to do something, because 21 just isn't quite there, even with dagger, Leroy, deckhand, right?
Right.
They just need one good hit with something. I did just actually punch myself in the face when I said that.
Stop hitting yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of
Stop
weird.
hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
Really getting into the casting, so it's like I'm a method caster as opposed to a method actor, but yeah.
Roleplay the rest of the cast. Every time Russia takes damage, you have to pretend you're taking damage.
That is absolutely fine. I've watched enough anime to do this.
Okay.
So many options.
They lent immediately towards Baku, did Hungary. But then...
Like the double 3-drop hero power. You've got to think, what do they have from the Rex hero power? Poisonous isn't unlikely. If you do you want to just completely get wiped to Poisonous?
How about Leroy them and then make a 2/6?
That was cool. Back. Oh, okay. It's like a Godzilla fight going down right now. Baku the Moon Eater versus King Crush.
Yep, and giant dinosaurs do in fact beat weird magical moon lizard things.
Yeah, it's actually true.
That's just basic biology.
What do what the megalodons? That's it, isn't it?
Is it?
The giant sharks. What do they beat?
Are they megalodons?
I think they're
Giant
megalodons.
sharks? Okay. My dinosaur knowledge has never really been up to scratch. I always used to know like kids at school who could name like 75 different dinosaurs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You knew the cool kids then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I like the one with like the armor on the back and the clobbering tail. You know that one?
The spines on the back? It's just
No,
Megadon,
it's just like armor and it's got the tail with the ball at the end that smacks people.
Oh, yeah.
That was always my favorite. I can't remember the name though, so I couldn't have liked it that much, could I?
Again, my mate James, he could have told you.
I'm sure he still could.
Yeah.
It's not the type of thing you forget.
James, hit me up. No idea if you follow me on Twitter. Haven't spoken to you for like 20 years at this point.
Dinosaur James.
Yeah.
So the issue with the bat is that you can't proc it that easily if you don't have the rush, especially with no play deads in hand. So
He does though, right? He must have taken Stone Toss Ball with it, surely. Oh no, he took Lifesteal. Okay, interesting. I hadn't noticed.
which was the big payoff if he got play dead, because that's insane, right? You could clear the board and get the lifesteal. But if this goes off, he wins more than likely.
Yeah,
so
but
behind the Grizzly, it's huge.
Right, and this is the play I talked about, setting this up in a couple of turns' time. Just, Grizzly into Bloatbat was just looking so potentially powerful and a game-winning play. So I guess with that in mind, taking the lifesteal was actually smart, right? If you knew that you had this setup. I talked about this setup and then didn't really extend the logic to the point that you didn't need the charge if you were going to make this setup happen. I guess the only world you're scared of now is like second Vile Spine, where just too much damage would be pushed potentially.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you do get a lot. I always lean towards lifesteal with this, unless you need poison, of course, to just wipe a Taunt Druid board, for example. But like lifesteal, I feel in matchups like this, the second it goes off, you've won, and you also still have 2 play deads you can draw.
Yeah, no, understandable.
Right, that is a huge deal. No trackings in this list, which is a little bit weaker in terms of the cubes, in terms of getting what you need. But the second this blowback happens, how does Rogue do more damage right now?
So they're going to finish this with Dagger and then Fungal Mance for the remaining minions.
Let's push the most damage.
Yep, still only 15 even with Wind Fury. Takes the stealth though, which at least gives them some semblance of an out on the following turn with the stealth fledgling.
Master Show's pretty sweet right now though. Cave Hydra.
Oh, the absolute boy! This is the king of all high rolls. If they can fix this up.
They need anything for the Hydra to attack.
Yep.
They can get. Oh, so they need Ball, right? Stuntus Ball. Exactly.
Or Echo Rush guy would be good enough, right? Is it too expensive? No, it's fine.
Oh, Scale-Eyed. Yeah, because the bat can proc itself. You don't need Shaw, right? I was working out what you could do, what you could get with Shaw, but then you still need like 1 mana stuff. So
right,
any of the 0 mana ones would get the job done too.
They actually went Timberwolf, which I guess has merit as well.
Push more damage, right? Oh no, no, it doesn't. No mind.
Boom.
Slight missequence there from Russia. The Timberwolf would have buffed the Bloatbat, which would have healed them for 1 more because they attacked as lifesteal. Could have been on 20. Probably not going to make a difference, but still. a lot of the time it does make a difference if you just miss lifesteal damage.
I do like this route they took as well, because actually trying to high roll the position where you kill the fledgling is probably something that you just tunnel on in that spot, and then leaving yourself the freedom with the cheap beast to be able to just pick up any taunt, right? If you just take the cheap beast, then you can just put that taunt down, and it's so unlikely that that vicious fledgling does that anyway, and even if it does, you've just healed for like 12 that turn, so who cares?
And like I said, it was all off the back of the bloatbat, right? Because you take that lifesteal, if it can go off, it either doesn't heal you for that much because they've got barely any minions on board, or 1 minion. Great, it's going to heal you for 4 minimum if it hits something. Or it does that and heals you so far forward that at that point in the game, the rogue can't really recover that well.
Right.
It's all down the back of that Grizzly, of course, but the Grizzly did get cleaned up pretty easily. It's just the space to play the bloatbat.
Yeah, it just really, you know, obviously when the bloatbat comes down, it's kind of checkmate, but you want to make sure it pops on your turn, right? You want to be in control of where that 4 damage goes, because that can be the huge break point. So that's why I was spending like that couple of turns talking about, hey, they can set up this Witchwood Grizzly into bloatbat play, and they left them in a position where, you know, even though they could break through the Grizzly quite easily, they just had to push face damage in the spot that they're in, because they still had to sink 10 into that Grizzly at the end of the day, and with that much wasted damage, they just had to disrespect the bloatbat.
Yeah, it was a losing option, I felt, no matter which way they looked at it for the rogue players. But let's take a look at this matchup, because it went pretty quick. It was the 3-0. Silvername, Renman, and Staudachi with Fox, obviously with them on comms, of course. But
chilling. Doesn't get to play.
Win, yeah.
Absolutely chilling. Fox with his feet up.
Yeah, I think these deck choices are really solid. I wonder if Russia had a read that people would go more aggressive, because then Recruit Hunter is better. It still does a similar job to Cube, but it's not as strong against the Uber control stuff, but it's way better against aggro when you're running double Saronite, double Tar Creeper. You still have the weapons, for example.
I think it's a decent read to have made. They wouldn't be the first team that we've heard say, you know, we expected a downturn in Control Mage and an uptick in Aggro Mage, and kind of similarly for the other decks. And that's the read that several players have talked about to us, and it's the read that's reflected. Control Mage is one of the biggest decreases in decks brought to the second week. Aggro Mage is one of the biggest increases on the flip side. But now you can just see the story of that very short series. You shouldn't need your memories refreshing too much. Should all be nice and at the forefront. But that lightning storm, that volcano, Russia really found all of the AoE they needed, and it really was that Manatide totem that you see on the board kind of carrying. I was extolling the virtues of leaving the Manatide up and being aggressive, but because Russia had a good enough hand to start with, they were able to secure once, and then the Manatide just snowballs, and that helps them secure the second time, the third time.
I think they ended up, 4, 5 cards maybe deeper than they should have been,
at least,
sort of thing with the Manatide, and that just makes a world of difference. Then we saw one of the one-sided matchups we talked about, the Quest Rogue lining up against the Warrior. You know, I do think that there was some missteps here from Hungary, to be completely honest, in the matchup. It was a hard one anyway, don't get me wrong. I think they could have just done a little bit better in terms of how they managed with the information they were aware of.
I think that's possibly true. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think the Quest Rogue had this one in the bag, but it's still no reason not to play optimally, right?
Yeah. Just things like you knew the Glacial Shard was there, they didn't swing the Sulfuris once, even in some weird worlds where they draw badly, even though that was impossible with the Minstrel. But then we just go off the back of the one we just saw, where the Recruit Hunter instead of the Cube Hunter did get the work done, but it all came down to the MVP, the Bloatbat, taking the big heal and pushing them out of any serious problems there. So Russian Federation, bit of a wonky week for them last week, but getting a win on the board gives them a 1-on-1 score, which for for week 2 isn't too bad at all. And now we can talk to one of your favorite people. We've got Staudachi on the line, I believe. Hey Stan, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Awesome. So congratulations on the win, a very quick win with a 3-0. I'm going to ask the important question first. How surprised were you at crushing walls when it came down and cleared some awkward minions off your board like the Tar Creeper?
It was pretty surprising. We didn't think about it for sure, but probably our placement of Tar Creeper was was not bad at all. Yeah, if you think about it, probably in late game it will be more scary, right?
Yeah.
So probably it will was bait a little bit.
So what you're saying is you didn't think about it, but just baited the crushing walls anyway to avoid late game issues. I like it. I like it.
Galaxy
Yes.
brain. I wanted to ask, how did you feel when they, in the pick ban phase, when they picked all of their aggro decks so quickly? Was that a strategy you were scared of, or were you happy to play against aggro?
I think it's okay to play against aggro. So last week we played our worst matchups for all our decks. It was the worst possible scenario how we lose. So that's the worst thing about this format for sure.
And what were you thinking? We've just been discussing it here, but the Recruit Hunter pick versus the Cube Hunter that's becoming very popular with the eggs. What was the reason for you picking the Recruit Hunter version, the slightly older version for you guys?
Every Shaman deck play double shock or double MCTF or something like this. Think this version played better. Probably versus it.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Any more, Sotsal?
No, that's about it from me. I just want to say well played. Congratulations. Glad to see you guys on the board, and we'll let you go and enjoy your evening.
Thank you. We'll try.
So she's just like, yeah, we only lost last week because of bad ordering. We won this week because we played around. We baited
I baited the crushing walls so it didn't get more value against my Rexar beast later.
I love it.
What a god.
The thing is, I know that he's lying, but I'm going to believe him.
Yeah.
I think subconsciously that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good, though, for Russia taking the win and getting back on form, I would say. I imagine they were very disappointed with a week 1 loss. But that's going to be it for us for now. We've got another match coming up, so don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.